Hey everyone, it's Mark Bayer, and you are tuned to When Science Speaks. This episode of the show is sponsored by the One for the Week newsletter. One for the Week is a free weekly newsletter delivering to your inbox on Sundays. One resource related to presentation skills, writing, or persuasion can be applied right away to help you land your dream job, get buy-in for your ideas, or get promoted faster. Interested in getting free insights in your inbox to help you achieve those goals? Go to onefortheweek.com to get the resources for moving up. It is so great to have Amy Bantham, DRPH, on the show today. Amy is the CEO founder of Move to Live More, a research and consulting firm helping clients combine evidence-based research with practice for improved communications, policy, and strategy to get people moving. She is the immediate past president of the Physical Activity Alliance, the nation's largest coalition of organizations dedicated to promoting health and well-being through physical activity. A certified health and wellness coach, personal trainer, and group fitness instructor, Amy earned her Doctor of Public Health from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And Amy, I just have to mention that I noticed you did not include the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. And of course, that's how we know each other. Amy, in any case, wonderful to have you on this show.
Thank you, Mark. It is so great to be here. And yes, you and I first met at the Harvard Kennedy School. And much of what I learned about persuasion and communication and translating research for a lay audience came from that. So that is an oversight on my part.
Well, I'm going to ask you to start because obviously we focus a lot on those issues in the show as well as ones that you're working on. Many listeners are pursuing demanding academic programs or they're working in intense professional environments that really don't necessarily allow much time for exercise. And of course, you earned your Doctor of Public Health when you had young kids at home. How can busy people fit health and wellness into their lives?
Yeah, I really experienced this when I went back to school. I was consulting. I had two 5-year-olds and a 7-year-old when I was starting my DRPH. Every minute counts. It's not just my advice, it's the physical activity guidelines, our national standards for physical activity. Every minute count. In 2008, the physical activity guidelines talked about activity in bouts of 10 minutes. If it was below 10 minutes, it didn't count. 2018 physical activity guidelines addressed that, readjusted, and really put forth every single minute counts, no matter what it is. So if you're talking on the phone, do some squats. If you need to have a meeting, make it a walking meeting. You're on the phone walking around the neighborhood. I commuted from my home in Somerville to the Longwood area. And by train, it could be upwards of an hour and 10 minutes. I rode my bike. And so I got wonderful physical activity through active transport. And so really looking for ways to incorporate physical activity back into our lives in a way that it's really integrated. That goes for family life as well. Really thinking about ways that we can spend time together as a family, and maybe we're watching a soccer game on TV. Halftime, let's get up. Let's have a family dance party. Let's move a little bit. We just finished dinner. We want to continue the family conversation after dinner. Let's take a family walk together.
I love that. I just have to say, I was up at Cornell University a couple weeks ago and I was talking to some of the professors and they were saying, we see kids waiting for the bus to go to the gym. And they just, if it doesn't happen in the gym, it really didn't happen at all. So thanks for debunking that. Really excellent ways of fitting in meaningful exercise. You know, thinking about the science of physical activity, we hear a lot about release of dopamine, and that's one of the reasons why, whether it's a runner's high or just feeling good after exercise. Are there other physical or biochemical benefits, say, that we're getting when we exercise?
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about this. I get a lot of media requests around this. And in keeping with the theme of your show, really thinking about how to translate the research so that it's relevant to and actionable by. everyday people. And this really came home to me in a project that I recently worked on for the American Council on Exercise, where we created a certificate for anyone, anyone who wanted to get fellow community members moving. And so it really caused me to think about the research and the translation of the research. So it was really understandable by absolutely anyone. So I think about it in terms of the body, going from top to bottom. So thinking about physical activity is good for your brain. It's good for your cognition, your memory, your attention, your focus, your school performance, your work performance, and then going down to the heart and the blood vessels, improving blood pressure, helping managing blood sugar levels. Thinking about your lungs, it improves aerobic fitness, which is the ability to get oxygen to your muscles. Talking about your muscles, it's building strong muscles. Your bones, it really improves your bone strength. So going top to bottom. And then also thinking about physical activity in terms of a time continuum. We often talk about physical activity, it's good for preventing a disease that you may or not get 30 years from now. That doesn't inspire people to move
Sure,
today,
sure.
right? And so thinking about the immediate benefits of movement, it's an immediate mood boost. It reduces feelings of stress, your worries, your fears, your anxieties right away. It helps how you sleep today. The length of time it takes you to fall asleep, it increases the amount of the time you're spending in deep sleep. It's also an immediate energy boost and fatigue reducer. It reduces blood pressure right away. And then we also think about sort of the longer term benefits that I've talked about. So over time, it reduces symptoms of depression, low moods, lack of energy, blood pressure over time, physical fitness over time. And then, of course, the slowing or delaying of disease, such as high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. It reduces our risk of getting certain diseases, type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart disease, certain types of cancer, reduces risk of death from all causes. And again, thinking long term reduces risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, helps us stay at a healthy weight. And I know this is in the news a lot recently with anti-obesity medications and prescribing those medications in combination with diet and physical activity change. So physical activity is so important for helping us stay at a healthy weight and preventing bone diseases, osteoporosis. And again, thinking long term, it helps us with balance and coordination and fall prevention. So top to bottom, brain to bones, now to the future, those immediate mood boosting benefits.
Well, thanks for that, Amy, because so many good things in there. This recognition that just telling people, well, do this because 30 years from now will be less likely to get this other bad thing happening. Also giving people so many different options, ways to think about health and wellness that maybe they haven't at all. And you're talking about, 1-minute bouts of exercise. I was really tempted to start doing jumping jacks while you were talking, but I decided that could mess up the listening experience for folks. But if you're listening to this and you feel like, yeah, you want to get up and move, like that's exactly what Amy is doing here. I want to do that. You can hear the energy and the passion in your voice. And of course, it's suffused with real knowledge and evidence-based information, as you talked about. So you have that great combination. Every January or so, health clubs start to crowd with new members. They're got their New Year's resolutions. They're finally going to get in shape. But around March, many of those people have abandoned their New Year's resolutions. And so some of the mindsets you've talked about, just now, I really do think would be helpful in dealing with this. But any other things that you'd like to add, mindsets or mechanisms that we can draw upon to make health and wellness? Of course, you talked about integrating into the family, which certainly is a huge, huge part of it, I would think.
Yeah, and you're generous with March. It's usually by mid to late February where people are gone. Because I teach group exercise, I have for 25 years. And what I love about my students is that they are there day in, day out, week out, year in, year out. And so they have found a way to make it up. It's Wednesday morning, 8:30. I'm at Amy's group exercise class and we dance together and we lift weights together. And that's what we do every single Wednesday. So there is a component of the making movement a habit. And you and I have both taken behavior change classes where we have signals and clues, putting your shoes by the door. So when you get up, you get out there and you do your morning walk or you do your morning run. I actually found during the pandemic, I wasn't teaching. And so for the first time in 20 years, I was faced with having to make movement more of a habit than it is when I know that I need to show up and teach a class. So I would actually wear my workout clothes to bed. And so I was all dressed when I got up. And so if I wasn't going to work out, I had to take them off and change. And so I find things like that really help. But I also, and I highlighted these themes a little bit. So engineering movement back into our lives. So it's not something separate. I interviewed someone for my podcast, Dr. William Bird, and he actually speaks about, he's a clinician and he speaks about movement on the BBC. And he talks about, this advice to take the bus and get off at a different bus stop and then walk back. People aren't going to do that. It can't be separate from our lives. It has to be part of our lives. Maybe it is active transport. I talked about me biking to and from the Longwood campus because I was in school all day and taking care of my family at night, but I needed to get to school. So I got 2 hours of activity every day. And by the way, I wrote my papers in my head, or I did my presentations in my head on my way because movement gets my brain moving and thinking as well. So making it fun, a part of active transport, using those cues of putting shoes by the door, of wearing your workout clothes to bed, and also doing it with the family. And I mentioned really incorporating family dance parties, family Olympics events in the backyard, because it's a way to spend time together. It doesn't have to be parent-led. It could be saying yes to a kid who says, hey, can we go out and play tag together? And so during the pandemic, we did Olympic sports nights where every person got to pick an activity. And so we would get out there and we would just move together.
I love it. Wearing workout clothes to bed, I have not heard that. I think it's an excellent option, though, just for the reason you said, because if then you don't work out, then you've got to take off your workout clothes and do something else. So just go with it, stay with it. I love that. Some of the things you've talked about touch upon this next question. And as we mentioned at the front, we know each other from the Kennedy School. You've been involved in so many different perspectives on exercise, and you still are, as you point out, group health, group wellness instructor, group exercise instructor, and then also past president of the major trade association regarding physical activity. I'm wondering, how have public policies about health and wellness evolved over time, and how do you see them in the future?
Yeah. Well, this is very timely because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's National Physical Fitness and Sports Month. And in May, I will actually be in DC on Capitol Hill, your old stomping ground, advocating on behalf of the health and fitness industry. And since 2006, we have been advocating on one specific bill, the Personal Health Investment Today Act, which would make it possible for consumers, individuals, families to use pre-tax dollars to pay for health club memberships, sports equipment, youth sport fees.
Mhm.
And so we've been advocating on this for a very long time. For physical activity expenses, it needs to be prompted by a diagnosis of a specific disease.
Mm.
For obesity, hypertension, heart disease, and an individual needs to have a letter of medical necessity from a healthcare provider. So the diagnosis is what prompts the ability to use these monies for physical activity expenses. And what we're advocating for is preventative health, the ability to use these monies without having a disease before you get a disease, and really turning our sick care system on its head and supporting people in being able to move and be active and send their kids to Little League or lacrosse camp or what have you, and to be able to use these pre-tax monies and to make it more affordable and accessible. It would be, depending on your income tax rate, 20, 30%, 35% less expensive. And so that's one thing that we continue to advocate for, really to try to move our sick care system to a preventative health system.
I have to say that is so much in the vein of what we should be doing and what we've been talking about doing for decades is changing this kind of, well, we're going to react once the bad thing has happened. We want to be preventive, not reactive. And it seems to me this is a great way to really put some real energy and specificity behind it. We'll, of course, have a link to the bill if listeners are interested in getting involved. It could be something as simple as sending an email or posting on social about the importance of this bill. Amy, as we wrap up, you have a great new book out, and it's called Move to Live More, a guide for parents and caregivers to help their kids move more and feel better. Tell us about the book. What can readers expect? How can they benefit from reading your amazing new book?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I really wrote the book. Couple reasons. My why for writing the book. One is I really saw the extent to which my kids, kids in my community, kids in communities across the United States, across the world, were really struggling during and after the pandemic in terms of physical health, physical inactivity levels through the roof, childhood obesity levels increasing. I saw the extent to which they were struggling with mental health, anxiety, stress, depression. I saw the extent to which they were struggling with learning loss. There are some kids in the K to 12 school system who will never make up the, the learning loss from during the pandemic before they leave the K through 12 system. And then I was seeing the extent to which parents like me, fellow parents, were struggling with all of this. Really, how do we get our kids moving more and feeling better? And so I wrote the guide. I took a very much a whole child help to it, looking at the interrelatedness, the interconnectedness of mental health, physical health, learning, focus, concentration, and the really important role that parents and caregivers, coaches, teachers play in being role models for kids and getting them moving. I divided it into 20 chapters, each highlighting a thought leader in the youth, sports, and physical activity space. In very much keeping with the theme of your show and the theme of my work, I wanted to translate the research for a lay audience and really make it actionable for coaches, teachers, parents, grandparents, caregivers. And so I included 50 takeaways and 50 tips, really actionable ways that families can start right now in getting moving, making it fun, incorporating it into our lives, active transport to and from school, weekends, evenings, and really making movement accessible, joyful, and something that the whole family can do together.
Just wonderful. And those will be the last words of the episode. There's nothing more to say than that, Amy. Wonderful. You motivated us and you've given us specific things we can do. We'll link to the book. So excited to have Dr. Amy Bantham on the show today. Amy, thank you for taking time out from your very busy schedule to join us.
Thank you so much, Mark.
And listeners, thanks for being here on this episode of When Science Speaks.